Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar. Starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago. Investigators leading the probe into the fatal shooting of Joshua Samaru met with Director of Public Prosecutions Roger Gaspard yesterday at 1 p.m. Good news. This meeting took place immediately after the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service officially completed the investigative file and handed it over to the DPP's office. Question is, what is he going to do with that evidence? The critical breakthrough that allowed the file to move forward was the receipt of the long-awaited forensic analysis report from the Forensic Science Center, which investigators finally obtained on Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. Why did it take that long? And once again, let's just hope that the police who investigated themselves, basically, it's their colleagues, actually conducted a proper investigation and gathered the evidence needed, and no evidence is missing, so that the DPP, which I don't really have much confidence in any case, can actually say, you know what? Okay, charge them. My response, I hope justice will be served. Police officers are not above the law, and extrajudicial killings are no different to turf wars or other types of murders which take place in TNT. The TTPS must ensure that all police officers are mandated to wear body cameras while on duty, so that they can use the video footage to verify their claims of self-defense, which can also be used to convict them of murder. You see, that's the thing about it. Roger Alexander, as much as you are improving significantly as Minister of Homeland Security, you continue to ignore the fact that there's a very urgent need for body cameras to be worn by police officers for two reasons. It's to protect your own colleagues from being accused of killing someone who was innocent, who was unarmed. They may not have been innocent. They could be probably criminals. They could be probably gang members, but they were unarmed at the point in time, and therefore deadly force should have never been used. There are some legitimate cases, and because people are making, look at the case, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, the man in someone's home. They're claiming that this man, the homeless man, or the man who wasn't homeless, but the man, he had addictions or whatsoever problems and things like that, but that he was given permission by the owners who are living away to be able to reside in the home. And the police officers were contacted and told that somebody break it into a house. And he supposedly had a weapon and aimed at the police officers, and they neutralized him. Now, if you had body cameras, you would have been able to verify those claims immediately, within hours, or at least within a day or so. You could have been able to release the footage to the public in order to prove, to verify what the police officers are saying, their side of the story, which we all know more. A lot of the times, these police officers just copy and paste the same report over and over again. We feared for our lives. The person or the persons aimed at us, we feared for our lives, and we returned fire. When video footage from private citizens end up in the public domain, we end up seeing that the story is totally different. And this is why Roger Alexander made a terrible error when he said that people should not be allowed to release this video footage into the public. That's part of our democratic rights, Roger Alexander. And I hope and pray that privately, even though the Prime Minister should have done it publicly, privately the Prime Minister told you, sir, you cannot be telling people that they cannot release that type of evidence into the public domain. That's their rights, to be able to hold the police officers accountable for their actions and to reveal the truth. The truth that somehow or the other the TTPS tends to be able to conceal most of the times. So as much as I continue to support most of what is being done by the Kamala Prasad administration, they continue to lack in this particular on this particular issue. They are not taking it seriously. You need to mandate the wearing of body cameras for all police officers at all times while they're on duty. It's for their own benefit, and definitely to reduce the instances when you have police shooting incidents, and also It is to even protect them from false allegations being made against them. Don't say that it's going to prevent them from being able to perform their duties properly. That's utter nonsense that even Jamaica is trying at this point in time. The politicians in Jamaica are trying to use that same false narrative. How come American cops could be able to wait and perform their duties and use, as I said, use that video footage to either verify their claims, or the prosecutors and the authorities could use it to be able to charge police officers when they do end up abusing their authority. Minister in the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, Ernesto Kesar, announced that long-awaited reforms for Trinidad and Tobago's liquefied petroleum gas (LPG) industry finally on the horizon. He delivered these updates during his feature address at the Liquefied Petroleum Gas Dealers Association Limited Pioneer Awards. These changes followed an urgent regulatory review that the ministry ordered after a series of dangerous domestic gas cylinder explosions and fires occurred earlier this year, I believe, and last year. I started to wonder if it was actual sabotage, though, because how come it wasn't really taking place under the PNM? But nevertheless, very glad that new policies are being put in place, because it looks as though a lot of these cylinders and so forth weren't really being properly maintained, changed when needed to, and whatsoever. The upcoming policy updates aimed to completely modernize the domestic gas sector by enforcing stricter safety standards. It's people's lives they're dealing with. So I fully approve of this. Updating delivery regulations and improving tracking protocols for gas cylinders across the country to protect the consumers. You see what I'm talking about? The government is doing a whole lot to improve our lives here in Trinidad and protect us as well here in Trinidad and Tobago, including the support of the war against narcotourism in the Caribbean. It's just that there are certain things that they definitely need to improve on, especially when it pertains to the reforming of the TTPS.
There's a particular type of reform that has been before the ministry for 10 years. And through the good work of our permanent secretaries, PS Tulsi and PS Das, we have dusted them out, and we are now aggressively pursuing them to get to the cabinet. So hopefully in the upcoming couple of months, you will see that.
Speaking at an awards ceremony hosted by the Liquefied Petroleum Gas Dealers Association Limited, Minister Kesar praised the pioneers in the sector while emphasizing LPG's continued importance to households and small businesses across the country.
It's about the mother preparing meals for her family. It is about the small parlor owner trying to make an honest living. It is about the doubles vendor, the caterers, the rural household, the small business operator. And it must be recognized for that decades, LPG has quietly powered the everyday life of Trinidad and Tobago.
President of the Liquefied Petroleum Gas Dealers Association Limited, Imtiaz Rajkumar, said the association stands ready to work with the government.
Our local and international LPG experience is available to help craft a plan of evolution for the industry as the government seeks to create the structure of our important industry into its next phase of development.
Acting Chief Executive Officer of the Trinidad and Tobago National Petroleum Marketing Company Limited, Chester Beeput, congratulated the awardees for their stellar contributions to the LPG industry.
NP joins with the association in acknowledging the dedication, resilience, innovation, and service of tonight's honorees, and applauds them for elevating the standards of the industry. I take this opportunity to commend the association for its vital contribution and for its unwavering commitment to the continuous improvement and development of the sector.
11 pioneers were awarded during the ceremony. Daniel John, TTT News.
On Thursday, May 21, 2026, Trinidad and Tobago will experience generally sunny, slightly hazy, and breezy conditions. The daytime maximum temperature is expected to reach 31 degrees Celsius to 32 degrees Celsius. The heat index will make the air feel closer to 34 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric humidity levels are expected to range from 65% to 90%. Breezes will blow from the east-northeast to east-southeast at speeds of 5 to 35 kilometers per hour. Open waters around the islands will remain moderate with wave heights peaking near 2.0 meters. Sheltered coastal areas will experience calmer conditions with wave heights between 1.0 to 1.5 meters. Sunrise will occur at 5:43 a.m. and sunset will follow at 6:22 p.m.
Regional news now as part of the government's continued push to strengthen agriculture and food security nationwide in Guyana. The Regional Agriculture Department in Maba Ruma, Region 1, is supporting farmers through the distribution of agrochemicals, high-value vegetable seeds and seedlings, as well as assistance with shade house farming initiatives. Farmers and farming groups are also benefiting from technical support and registration programs aimed at boosting productivity and expanding crop production. And you know, of course, this is going to take place under the United National Congress here in Trinidad and Tobago as well. A whole lot, but I'm going to say it again in the next budget, especially as Trinidad and Tobago's economy begins to recover. The next budget, a lot more, a larger portion of the budget should be allocated to the agricultural sector here in Trinidad and Tobago, like what is being done in Guyana under the Irfan Ali administration. Jamaica has secured US $200 million in parametric hurricane insurance through a World Bank-issued catastrophe bond. The bond is US $50 million more than the government had initially sought after global institutional investors oversubscribed the offering, according to a World Bank press release. The bond replaces coverage that was fully paid out to Jamaica following Hurricane Melissa, which struck the island in October 2025. Now, that's good news, but we continue to hope and pray that this year they will be spared. No more hurricanes for Jamaica, please. They are on the road to recovery at this point in time. Pray for your own nation as well, and repent if there are any sorts of actual things taking place in Israel, in Jamaica, that shouldn't be taking place. Especially, there's a reason why I ended up saying Israel by mistake. A lot of the citizens in Jamaica, just like here in Trinidad and Tobago, are anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist. God takes those things very seriously and judgment falls. You think Trinidad will continue to be spared as well as they continue to go down the pathway of being very seriously in support of jihadist, radical jihadist types of concepts and ideologies instead of supporting Israel? It's ridiculous what is taking place here in Trinidad and Tobago as well. And we have to continue to pray for mercy, because God's judgment will end up falling at some point in time if we continue to show that type of level of hatred for Israel. Barbados' newly appointed Chief Agricultural Officer Paul Lucas officially assumed office, bringing over 20 years of regional experience to lead the country's drive for food and nutritional security. At 39 years old, Mr. Lucas stepped into the role after gaining technical and leadership experience across Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda, Montserrat and the Cayman Islands. A lot of places, man. In his first public address, the new chief explained that agriculture remains entirely central to the island's identity, national development, and economic livelihood. To combat critical industry challenges like predial larceny, really affects us here in Trinidad and Tobago as well. Patriots always going and trying to reap their ancestral inheritance in other people's property. So to combat critical industry challenges like predial larceny, severe monkey crop damage, labor shortages, rising input costs, and climate change-induced water scarcity, Lucas announced that his administration will heavily prioritize direct partnership, strategic alliances, and increase practical engagement with local farmers. Bahamas opposition leader and Marco City MP Michael Pintard heavily criticized the speech from the throne, arguing that it delivered more of the same empty promises from the Davis administration. Opposition, boy, sounding a whole more and more like PNM, you know, boy. I don't know, boy. I'm watching. I'm still observing. I don't know. The new administration now won the elections. Let's see how they're going to perform, if they're actually going to keep their promises. If they start to just ignore the cries and the concerns of their citizens, then the current administration will be the actual ones that lean on the PNM, despicable side of governance. He made these remarks shortly after Governor General Dame Cynthia Pratt concluded the address, stating that the government failed to present a truly innovative vision for the country. Pintard explained that Free National Movement, FNM, sounds a lot like PNM, doesn't it? Opposition team will take time to carefully evaluate every detail of the speech before offering a comprehensive point-by-point response. In his initial reaction, the opposition leader also noted that many of the announced plans were simply recycled projects that administration had already failed to deliver during its previous years in office. So if that's true, my goodness, that ain't a good sign. But the question is, why do people still overwhelmingly vote for this next political party? Remember, there isn't a tribal issue in Bahamas like we have here in Trinidad. Trinidad is split between the East Indians and the Africans, the Afro-Trinis and the Indo-Trinis. And the UNC is considered to be an Indo party, even though they have a whole lot of Africans in it, especially nowadays because of Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. So usually we know that UNC is always an uphill climb, a battle in order to be able to win an election here in Trinidad and Tobago because of tribalism, because UNC definitely does perform better than the PNM. But tribalism always comes in the way. But in places like Barbados and Bahamas, the parties are basically all controlled by Africans. Sometimes, like in Jamaica, there might be a white or white kind of looking person. Or like in Barbados, another Barbados, Antigua, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Gonzalez, right? He isn't African. So, but you don't really think about tribalism when it pertains to him either, because I guess even though he isn't African, I guess the citizens of that country don't really look at it any sort of in a negative way like we do here in Trinidad. I don't know, for whatever reason. But remember, the vast majority of people in his party most likely are African anyhow you take it. So even though he is not an African leader, they still don't have that issue of tribalism in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as we do here in Trinidad and Tobago. So when people reject your party, it isn't because of tribalism. Tribalism is probably because you're doing total tata. So like in the case of the FNM in Bahamas, they rejected you yet again. Maybe it's because you were not doing a good job while you were in government. International news now. On May 20th, 2026, the U.S. government charged 94-year-old former Cuban leader Raul Castro and 5 Cuban military pilots with murder and conspiracy to murder. The charges came from a 1996 incident where Cuban military jets shot down 2 unarmed civilian planes over international waters. You know, people want to already compare that to the Americans eliminating narco terrorists in international waters. Totally different. It was already verified that these were civilian aircrafts, and yet it was still shot down. The attack killed 4 volunteer pilots from a Miami-based group called Brothers to Rescue. U.S. officials say Castro approved the attack, and if convicted, he and the pilots could face life in prison or the death penalty. Well, at his age, he doesn't probably even really care much about life in prison. Probably just the death penalty aspect of it would concern him. I hope that the Trump administration will use this as an excuse in order to invade Cuba and liberate the people. The sad thing about it is Trump always begins a good job. He might go and capture him, though. Might go and capture him just like he went and captured Maduro. But he starts a good job and he never finishes it, just like what's taking place in Iran as well. Finish the job, Donald Trump.
Today, we are announcing an indictment charging Raul Castro and several others with conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals. Mr. Castro and the others are charged with additional crimes as well, including destruction of aircraft and 4 individual counts of murder. The indictment was returned by a grand jury sitting in this district in Miami on April 23rd, 2026, and was unsealed today. For nearly 30 years, the families of 4 murdered Americans have waited for justice.
Southwest Airlines is banning robots from their flights after a Texas robotics company took their humanoid but Stewie, not Stuart Young in Trinidad, on a flight from Dallas to Las Vegas. Social media videos show the robot walking through the terminal and boarding the plane while stunned passengers and flight attendants looked on like, what's going on here, boy? The very next day, Southwest updated its baggage policy to ban all human-like and animal-like robots from flights, including checked baggage, regardless of size or purpose. Yeah, but what about if the robot was identified as human? Anyway, that's for the radical left to respond to it, not my fellow conservatives who will say, it's not human. Common sense will let you know that. The robotics company says Stewie had his own ticket, and noted that his battery was FAA compliant and that the trip followed all airline rules at the time. On Tuesday, the Israeli Defense Force dismantled a weapons storage facility belonging to the Hamas terrorist organization in the central Gaza Strip. The weapons stored within the facility were intended to target IDF soldiers operating near the Yellow Line and Israeli civilians as usual, always targeting, the Hamas terrorists always targeting innocent civilians, and were dismantled in order to remove the threat. Prior to the strike, steps were taken to mitigate the risk of harm to civilians. You see what Israel always does? They warn the civilians, leave. And of course, that warning ends up giving a lot of the terrorists the opportunity to leave as well. But it's just to protect the civilians. That's why Israel continues to do that. So prior to the strike, steps were taken to mitigate the risk of harm to civilians, including the issuing of advanced warnings, the use of precise munitions, and aerial surveillance. How many other nations can say that they take those types of significant steps in order to protect the enemy? The civilian populations, but civilian populations in enemy territories, and these same civilians who chant death to Israel. How many other nations could claim that they take those type of steps that Israel takes?
Bible quote of the day. Genesis 15:13-14. Then he said to Abram, "Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. And also the nation whom they serve I will judge, afterward they shall come out with great possessions."
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's news report. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name.